focused on educational and reference section of the library. And the foundation is responsible for all of these projects. And we spent around $1 million US in 2006 and around $2 million in 2007. This year we will probably spend maybe $3 to $4 million, we're not sure yet. It's really remarkable to imagine how tiny that is. Right now we have about 15 full-time people worldwide. And so a lot of people who know Wikipedia from using it, they imagine that somewhere there must be something like the Google campus, with hundreds of people. And often when I'm giving talks, people come up to me afterwards and they're asking questions, and I don't really understand what they're asking until I realize they're trying to figure out where the big building is with all the editors, right? As you know, since lots of people in this room have edited Wikipedia, there is no such thing. It's the volunteer community handles all of the editing, all of that, and the office has very, very little to do with actually the editing process. About the only thing the office does related to the editing process is we have one person from the community who works in the office as the liaison. We get a lot of phone call complaints and things, and so he'll report that to the community or do something about that. And then occasionally, there's some kind of a legal situation, and the general counsel will, ask that something be done about an article as necessary. But that's about it. Everything else that happens is done by volunteers rather than by staff that's overseeing things. So we're supported primarily by small donations from people all over the world. The vast majority of money that we've gotten throughout our history is donations of, say, 100 euros or less, so $50 to $100, 1,500 euros. The bulk of the money comes from the US and from Europe, a significant amount from Japan. But last year we had donations from over 50 different countries all around the world. So it really is lots of people all over the world giving small amounts of money is really the bulk of our support. On the other hand, we have gotten some larger gifts, and we're trying to work on getting more of those because it's certainly very helpful. And we just got a $3 million 3-year grant from the Sloan Foundation. We're really excited about this. It's $1 million a year, unrestricted funding, so we can use it for the infrastructure. We can use it to build not just the technical infrastructure, but the infrastructure of the organization. It's been a really strange kind of phenomenon because the website has grown to be this enormous project online that everybody knows about, but the organization itself has been very tiny and very overwhelmed by all the demands placed on it. We always have lots of people who want to partner with us to do this, that, or the other. A mobile phone company wants to know, can they put Wikipedia on the phones? And in the past, we basically had nobody available to even answer those questions. So we would just say, well, let's talk about it next month or something, right? And that never came. So now we're finally getting organized as an organization, which is going to be really important because we want to have a diversity of funding sources. We've always been very happy that the bulk of our funding comes from small donations from the general public because that gives the community independence. In other words, there's no major donors trying to pull the strings or say whatever. It gives us real editorial independence. We want to continue that and maintain that. We want to have some major donors. We want to have some income from using the brand name on trivia games or something like this. We want to have small donors. A diversity of funding gives us stability and strength in the long run. Okay, so I talk about free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And it's important to understand what that means. In the open source software world, free software, there's an old saying that we're talking about free as in speech, not free as in beer. So the idea of free beer is this is great, you can get it, consume it, you didn't have to pay anything, and it's really wonderful. But the idea of free as in speech is really core to what we're talking about. For everything in Wikipedia, both the software and all of the content, everything is released under a free license, meaning you're free to copy it, free to modify it, you can redistribute it, you can redistribute modified versions, and you can do all of these things commercially or non-commercially. So this enables a huge amount of potential reuse of our work. People can take Wikipedia content and make books out of it. School teachers can adapt it to the grade level of the students, whatever they're needed. They can adapt it to the local needs of wherever. There's all kinds of things that people are able to do with Wikipedia content that are made possible by the free license. This also gives a very powerful amount of oversight by the community. If the Wikimedia Foundation ever decides to do anything really, really stupid, the community can take all the work and leave. There's no proprietary lock on what people are doing, and so it's always possible to leave to start a new project with a different basis and improve on it if you think you can. So what about the sum of all human knowledge? In other words, what is the scope? What are the limits of what can go in Wikipedia? Well, it's important that Wikipedia is an encyclopedia, not a data dome. You can't just stick any and all kinds of information of all kinds. An encyclopedia is a defined type of reference work, and we really try to stick to that. So we're not an archive, we're not a library, it's not a textbook. An encyclopedia offers an essentialized summary of human knowledge with the depth of the material depending on the context. So basically the idea is, while Wikipedia can be quite comprehensive, there are definitely some things that don't belong in Wikipedia. We have a whole range of philosophical discussions within the community about where to draw that line and how to draw that line. We have sort of long-standing terms like deletionist versus completionist. You know, the idea of people who think that lots of stuff should be deleted and it shouldn't be there, versus completionists who say, oh no, we should have even more stuff. Some of the kinds of arguments that people have about this, I think really probably the most persuasive and the most universally accepted criteria, although people differ on where to draw the line, is verifiability. In other words, is it possible to have an article about Oxford? Well, yes, of course. Oxford Union, yes. About this particular building? Well, probably so. This is quite an old building, and I'm sure it has some history. On the other hand, is it possible to have an article about this desk here? Well, maybe, but probably not. And certainly this projector, there's not anything verifiable that people could say about it, right? You could write an article about it, and nobody would really be able to confirm whether it's true or not using any kinds of sources. So the idea that you have to have sources, you have to have a way for other people to check your work is really, really core to what belongs in Wikipedia or what doesn't. We see a lot of people who have their own motives, which are quite separate from building a universal encyclopedia, who want to add their company or themselves or their high school rock band to Wikipedia. And so that's one of the things that we struggle with all the time, is where do you draw that line, how do you draw that line, and how do you do it in a way that's fair? So every single person on the planet is something that I talk about a lot, and so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the stuff that we're doing in the developing world and how I see the growth of this. So one of the things that this means is that the Wikipedia project is inherently global. From the outset, the mindset is this is not an American project, it's not an English project, it's truly a global project. We want to have something for everyone. And so although there are more than 2 million articles in English, this is less than a third of the work. We've got 15 more languages with at least 100,000 articles. There are now 74 languages with at least 10,000 articles. And there's 148 languages that have at least 1,000 articles. I think there's actually more than that now. I think it's 150 something. I haven't updated this slide in a while. So what you can see from this is that basically 74 languages with at least 10,000 articles is an interesting number. 10,000, once you have 10,000 articles, you've got a pretty healthy community. At 1,000 articles, you normally have a community. A small community has just gotten started, probably 5 or 6 people, regulars, 10 or 20 who come by from time to time. And that's at the point where I really feel like a Wikipedia is actually active. Before that, they often come and go. You'll see one person struggling, writing all by themselves, but it's kind of lonely and boring until you get some friends in there to talk to, or actually sometimes it's almost as valuable for the growth to have an enemy. I've got to go back every day to make sure that jerk doesn't wreck my article again. But once you get that kind of community started and people are starting discussing, debating, and then they start to think about, well, how can we get more people involved? How can we do outreach and things like that? So just to take one region, one place, South Africa. This is a list of the languages of South Africa. There are 11 official languages in South Africa. And of those languages, we only have what I would call a functioning community in 2 languages. We have English, of course, because this is a really global language. Then we have Afrikaans. Afrikaans is a variant of Dutch, and it is an African language. But it's not an indigenous language of Africa. It's a colonial language. And there's a small and healthy and very friendly community there. And actually that community is now the source of people who are really trying to reach out into the other language groups. And so they're kind of the core of the movement there, trying to get people involved from other languages, which is really interesting. But the other languages, we have very, very little. And so what we decided to do as a pilot project last fall was to hold something called Wikipedia Academy. in South Africa.